now we're going to turn our focus to more work around the federal child nutrition programs, specifically those happening in our schools. It is estimated that more than 1 in every 4 children in Dallas County are food insecure, meaning that they live in a household where there is a lack of access at times to enough food for an active, healthy life for all household members, and limited or uncertain availability of nutritionally adequate foods. While hunger alone is an issue that no child should have to manage, unfortunately, hunger more often than not is a contributing factor to additional difficulties children face during a typical day. As children who are food insecure also are more likely to be absent from school, have lower test scores, have a higher number of nurse visits, and behavioral issues compared to those children who have consistent access to nutritious foods. But childhood hunger is not a problem without a solution. We have school districts across the county and state leading the effort to reduce the impact of childhood hunger by improving access to federally funded school nutrition programs. Policies such as Texas's school breakfast bill have drastically improved the number of students with access to these meals. While this is to be celebrated, recently proposed policies threaten to undermine this success and limit the reach of school nutrition programs. For the nearly 400,000 children in Dallas County who qualify for a free or reduced meal, some of the newly proposed regulations would significantly reduce their ability to access school meals. While I could continue to speak about access to healthy food and school meals for probably the remainder of this afternoon, I want to give you a glimpse into the life of a child who faces hunger daily. Here's a clip from A Place at the Table.
Sometimes we run out of food, so we try to figure out something. Probably ask friends for food. We get really hungry and our tummies just growl, and sometimes I feel like I'm gonna barf because it feels bad. But I don't really know what to do.
Hunger definitely impacts my classroom.
Told Bernicia that they owed her money.
I have had students come to me upset, and it's definitely a huge issue in our small community.
We are going to spend a little bit of time talking about how to use context clues to help us when we find words in the textbooks that we're reading.
One student in particular, Rosie, I just really felt she wasn't really applying herself in the classroom, and I couldn't figure out where that attitude was coming from. I felt that she just really didn't care about what I wanted her to learn or that school was that important. And what I realized when I brought her in one day was the main issue was that she was hungry.
I struggle a lot. And most of the time it's because my stomach is really hurting. And I look at her and all I think about is food. So I have these little visions in my eyes. Sometimes when I look at her, I vision her as a banana, so she goes like a banana. And then everybody in the class is like apples or oranges. And then I'm like, oh, great.
We are tying the arms behind the backs of children as they go into public schools. We're making it so that we spend money for teachers and then we deliver to them a lot of children who can't learn.
The lost potential. Some of those kids could potentially be great scientists or go on to be leaders in our armed forces. But the impact that hunger has messes everything up. And as a result of that, we're weakening our nation.
So Rosie's story serves to magnify the important role school nutrition programs play in the lives of our children. To further discuss the importance of strong child nutrition programs, I want to hand it over to our moderator to introduce our panelists, J.C. Dwyer with Feeding Texas.
Thanks, Jenny. Good afternoon. For those of you who don't know Feeding Texas, we are the statewide network of food banks. The North Texas Food Bank here in Dallas and the Tarrant Area Food Bank in Fort Worth are two of our 21 members, and our mission is to lead a unified effort for a hunger-free Texas. We primarily do that by getting more fresh, healthy food into our food banking system, by resourcing our food banks to do more to help clients with their long-term health and financial security, and by advocating strongly for the needs of hungry families at the state capitol here in Austin and in DC. As the Chief Strategy Officer is my title, but with a title like that, you might expect me to have some strategies to offer you instead. All I have this afternoon are questions, which is extremely lucky because sitting next to me are some of our state and nation's best people at answering questions. For the facts, I'm going to turn to my panel, and I'm hoping, guys, that you can tell us who you are and who you work for, what your organization does relative to the child nutrition programs, and why they matter.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Eddie Longoria, and I am the Regional Director for the USDA Food Nutrition Service for all child nutrition programs. When I talk about the region, it's the southwest region of the United States, which include Louisiana, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and our big state of Texas. We also work with 26 Indian tribal organizations. We oversee all of the child nutrition programs to include the National Schoolers Program, breakfast program, summer feeding, child and adult daycare feeding programs, the women, infant, and children programs, to just name a few. We're responsible for ensuring that states not only administer the program within our regulations, but we also look for opportunities to bridge gaps where they may exist by not only working with our state partners, as an example here in Texas with Texas Department of Agriculture, but also with all of our wonderful advocacy groups who really we learn so much from, because they are the ones who are able to point out where those opportunities are at and really work in communities and bring the folks who can make things happen to the table. And so we cherish our relationships, because one of the things that my boss, who's our regional administrator, Bill Ludwig, who many of you know, has challenged all of the folks in the Southwest region, is to really focus on building our relationships and understanding the importance of, I guess I mentioned Bill and the lights turned off. What does that tell you, Jeremy? But it's relationships is how we get things done. And it's really important for everyone in this room to understand that the only way that we're going to be able to continue to combat hunger, especially with children, is through these relationships and building those relationships and the importance of them, and really looking for opportunities to bridge those gaps. I heard the last panel that was up here, our administrator and some of the folks talked about some of the deserts that exist. I had never heard of a swamp, but that was a really interesting, for the first time I heard about that, to really think about how a different way to look at things. But we don't know where they're all at. And so we lean on our advocacy partners to really work through us and bring in those folks to the table so we can combat hunger. We've been doing this for some time now with our partners at Texas Hunger Initiative, our partners over at Texas Department of Agriculture. Feeding America is a big partner of ours, and it's really, really important that we continue those relationships and really looking for those opportunities to bridge those gaps. That's just a little bit about what we do. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Jim Weil. I'm head of the Food Research and Action Center, or FRAC, as many of you know it, or frac.org, as many of you look at it online. So FRAC is a DC-based public policy, advocacy, and research center that works to end hunger in America through public programs, nutrition programs that we've been talking about all day, and other anti-poverty and family support programs, tax credits, but primarily the federal nutrition programs. So what we work to do is to improve federal laws and policies. We work with Congress, we work with USDA on regulations and guidance. We've played an important role over the years in improving or starting and improving WIC and SNAP and school meals and after school and so forth in Congress. As just one recent example, in 2010, FRAC really was the force behind adding after school meals to the federal nutrition program, the panoply of federal nutrition programs on a national basis. So in addition to all that lobbying and congressional and USDA work, we also provide a lot of technical assistance and support to states and cities and counties and advocates and nonprofits around the country on how to implement these programs. And we work with a lot of partners, national partners and others, on innovative ways to raise the recognition of hunger around the country and how to address it. It's just one current example. We're working with the American Academy of Pediatrics and AARP to get physicians to screen for food insecurity. And since physicians don't like to screen for things they can't treat, to provide them resources on how they can treat food insecurity by referring people to federal programs and food banks and other resources. So it sounds like you'll be looking at these websites we're building for AARP and the Academy in the months ahead. So that's just one example of the type of new relationships and partnerships. Then the last thing I'll mention is, as many of you know, FRAC does a lot of data analysis and reporting on state performance and metropolitan statistical area performance on how things are going in terms of implementing these programs: school breakfast, summer food, child care food, WIC, and so forth. I'll leave it at that and give it to Ann.
Hi everybody, I'm Ann Beeson. Sounds like my microphone. That worked better for you right there. Hi there everybody. I'm Ann Beeson, and I'm with the Center for Public Policy Priorities, and it's just so exciting to be here and talk about public policy all day, because as we say, public policy is our whole name. we believe in a Texas that offers everyone the chance to compete and succeed in life, and we think that's actually pretty straightforward. It means that everyone should be healthy, well-educated, and financially secure, and so food and nutrition has been a core part of our focus for many, many years. We're an Austin-based organization that works statewide, primarily on state policy, and it serves as a bridge between federal programs and state and local programs. And I first want to say, it's kind of a caveat, I may be the only one up here that's not an expert on food or food policy. I'm more of a generalist, but I am very passionate about eliminating poverty and hunger in Texas, and we are very fortunate at CHP to have a full-time food policy expert, Rachel Cooper, who many of you know, and to be able to work with so many wonderful advocates around the state. So many great groups: Feeding Texas, Texas Hunger Initiative, the Texas Food Policy Roundtable, and many more. And what we try to do, as we do on other issues we work on, is to serve as the policy arm of that broad movement to end hunger in Texas. We work on a number of different issues, and we often provide educational materials and policy analyses for kind of the broader movement. I brought a lot of those with me, and I was happy to see when I went to get my lunch that they're all gone. So one of the things we put out that I brought some copies of is a brochure called Food and Nutrition in Texas, which explains all the programs operating here in Texas, and we have many, many other brochures like that. They are all available on our website if you didn't get a chance to pick some up, which is chlp.org. And just to mention a few, and they've been mentioned already, most of them, we haven't actually talked a ton about community eligibility here today. This is a fantastic new program, which enables high-need schools to sign everyone up to get all the kids to get free breakfast and lunch. And we did a ton of work with our partners here in Texas to really increase the number of schools, to really help schools and districts sign up for that program. We've done a lot of work on after-school meals, again, sharing best practices, interviewing schools and spreading the word and telling those great stories about how impactful that program can be. Similarly, we were one of the groups among many who helped advocate a few years back at the Texas Capitol, and we spent a lot of our time there under that pink dome in Austin for passage of a great school breakfast bill here in Texas, and to try to, again, now spread models about what are the best ways, now that we have that program, to actually make sure that kids get those breakfasts, and what are the great delivery models. We also were able to, and this was just such a stunning win here in Texas in particular, last legislative session, we were actually able to help get repealed a lifetime ban on SNAP benefits for people with felony convictions. And that was really just an incredible thing to accomplish here in Texas. So as the generalists up here on the panel this morning, or I guess this afternoon now, what I'd like to do as we get into this conversation is highlight the kind of deep connection between hunger and other barriers to opportunity here in Texas and share some of that data, which is something we often produce and share with others.
Thank you. And I am Brad Trudeau. I'm the Director of Student Nutrition Services in Garland ISD, which a lot of you are from this area, but it is a suburb of 100 or so thousand people. We have 67,000 students and about 72 meals in Garland. We're the 13th biggest school district in the state of Texas and in the top 100 in the country. But we are always a little cousin to Margaret's group back there. Hi, Margaret. Dallas ISD. But I was with Dallas ISD for 20 years as a supervisor and a director there. I learned a lot about nutrition programs in Dallas, and I'm trying to implement. We're an implementer of the program. I have the best position of anybody in this room because I get to serve children meals every day. We serve student breakfast, we serve National School Lunch Program lunches, we serve CACFP at-risk supper, we serve meals on weekends, we serve meals in the summertime. I work for a school district, and people ask me, what do we do during the summer? I said, we go to the parks and serve children meals. I mean, the whole summer we were off one day, and that was the 4th of July. So, you know, we serve meals all the time. And I guess my biggest job is to expand the programs and the outreach to the children in need. And you think of the urban centers where you have CEP and you have a core group of people in need. There's a medium group out there where they still can't afford the electricity and the rent and the food. They live in what you might think is a nicer house. They're not in a colonial, but they don't have money for everything. And those are the children, the underserved population, that we weren't getting in Garland a couple of years ago. We've gone from 63% free and reduced to 67% free and reduced. We've taken the object or the reach of our program from a la carte sales to reimbursable meals. You know, focusing on reimbursable meals because we think that's where, you know, getting the children a healthy meal rather than a cookie and a soda or a pizza and a hamburger. We want, you know, the meals, the fresh fruits and vegetables. And we're working with Texas Hunger Initiative and a lot of people in this room to expand our programs to reach the community. And you know, the community just doesn't know about some of these programs somewhere. So you have to go, and I keep hearing over and over, go and reach out to the people, tell them the programs that we offer. And we have to do that to the principals in our schools. We have to do it to the parents in our communities. And I just think it's great. Thank you for having me today.
Well, before we talk more about the solutions to child poverty, I think it's appropriate to talk a little bit more about the problem. And y'all are known as sort of the data-driven advocates in Texas. You're the local partner of Kids Count. What does the data tell us about the intersection between child hunger and other social conditions?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the reports that we produce every year is the Kids Count report for Texas, which provides a lot of information about child well-being across a range of indicators of well-being. And I'm very sorry to report, first of all, that overall, Texas is one of the 10 worst states to be a child. And you know, I'm a proud Texan myself. I grew up actually just a few miles from here. I was telling Brad that my mom taught English at Garland High School for many, many years. And that is just not okay. That is not an acceptable thing that we're one of the worst states. Because we are not a poor state. We're actually a wealthy state, and we're lucky to be a wealthy state, and we can solve these problems. So 1 in 4 kids, 1.7 million children in Texas live below the poverty line. Many of you know that poverty line, you know, vastly underrepresents the number of children and people in our communities. So that's something we need to remember as well. And so it isn't a surprise because of this link that we have more than 1 in 4 Texas children, 27%, that live in households that are food insecure. Community eligibility we talked about. It's been a huge success in Texas, totally embraced by Texas schools. Under the current, one of the current proposals, more than 800 in the House, not the Senate, just the House side. More than 800 Texas schools serving 523,000 students would lose their community eligibility status under the current House proposal. That is like a lot of Texas kids, and so I just want to kind of bring it home and say it's really important that all of us be engaged on these issues. And the other one of the other serious problems is the suggestion that these programs be moved to block grant programs. Well, block grant programs have been a complete disaster in Texas, and so we very much. That's what happened with TANF, and of course TANF used to be a real support for needy families. It is now essentially non-existent here in Texas because it was changed to a block grant program, and Texas is using all that money for other purposes. So just, again, it's kind of policy, long kind of conversation, but to try to really bring you guys into it and understand that these decisions that are being made in Washington have a real impact on individual children's ability to get meals here in Texas, and we all need to stay engaged and try to understand what we can do to tell our own elected leaders what they should do. So,
I noticed there were some materials outside on block granting and writing your congressman on that. Texas has a history of being very proud of its state, so might even call it a national pride that we have here. Explain to us as lay people why giving Texas more authority and flexibility over these powers is not a good idea.
Well, Ann can talk about the peculiarities of Texas. Nationally, it's not just a Texas problem. Nationally, when you make these programs into block grants, which is what happened to the old welfare program when it was changed from AFDC to TANF, so it happened to many other programs. When you make them into block grants, first the money gets frozen. One of the glories of the federal nutrition programs, SNAP, school meals, after school and summer food, child care food, all the big ones except WIC. One of the glories is that they're entitlement programs. And so what that means is that even when nothing's happening at the federal level, the funding's not capped. You can grow these programs at the state level. You can grow these programs at the school district level, at the county level. When Bill Clinton left office, 50% of the eligible people in the country, people eligible for SNAP, were actually receiving SNAP. Now that number is about 83%. That has virtually nothing to do with Congress. All that's because of state and local and USDA work to get eligible people into the program. When you've got a block grant, it immediately, at best, flattens the funding and freezes it. It tends not to increase it for inflation. So all of the potential of growing the program through local and state work, because it is an entitlement, gets lost. And then this block grants give the states huge discretion in how to use the money. So just as my favorite recent example, some of you may have heard the podcasts that NPR did about how Michigan is using the TANF money to provide scholarships to upper middle class students to go to Michigan universities. The money just gets diverted to all sorts of good purposes, but not core purposes and bad purposes. And then, because it gets so diffused, and then I'll shut up and turn it over to him, because it gets so diffused, people lose interest in strengthening and protecting that program. So over time, the block grant loses political support because unlike a core program like school breakfast or SNAP, where everybody understands what it means, certainly we have fights about it, but everybody understands what it does and its strengths. The program gets so diffuse as a block grant that nobody gives a damn.
Can I just add something? One of the things that recently we had a disaster in Louisiana month before last, and if a block grant was in place in that state, for the amount of USDA dollars that are going to the National School Lunch Program for the disaster, they call them parishes, counties, if there was a block grant, that money would have ran out, and those children would not have access to food, USDA foods, through the National School Lunch Program. That's a worst case scenario, and that's really what, from USDA's standpoint, on the CNR, we're really disappointed that that's in the bill. Our hope is that it gets taken out, and we're able to move forward with a bill that does not have block grant in it for those reasons.
The only thing I would add on to this terrific explanation, that's already been given about the meeting is here in Texas, it's even more dire because here we have a state that quite historically has underinvested in all sorts of public services. And that is because our state budget is not big enough to serve the 27 million people who now live in our great state, right? So what happens when you have these block grant programs is that they actually become kind of a slush fund to plug holes in the state budget. That's like the way to think about it, right? And for reasons, as these gentlemen said already, that may have nothing to do with the original intention or very little to do with the original intention of the funds. So it's a major issue and one we should all, learn about and advocate against.
You mentioned, Eddie, how block grants are essentially a cap. I think it's worth pointing out that especially here in Texas, demographically, the populations that have historically been low income are the demographics that are growing in Texas. And unless our state legislature starts magically investing in those families, we can expect poverty to grow as well. And if we are capped at a certain point in time, that would mean that money would be worth less and less to Texas as a whole. Okay, so depressing stuff. Does advocacy work? You've been doing this for 30 years, Jim. And
thank you for just saying just 30. Advocacy works. Advocacy is fabulous. I think advocates by nature tend to be mildly depressive and pessimistic. And if I was to give a single message, it would be optimistic and congratulatory. From a low-income perspective, just looking at low-income programs, not just the nutrition programs, over the last 30, 40 years, wages in this country, particularly for the bottom third of the population, have declined substantially. And people have lost benefits at work as well. People lost health insurance. They lost traditional pensions and so forth. And the advocacy community, national, state, local, has done extraordinary work at least filling that hole that has been created in the employment market. And so that's not the earned income tax credit and the refundable child tax credit, the Medicaid expansions, and I know Texas has not picked up the Medicaid option, but the Medicaid expansions that both happened before the Affordable Care Act and now in 30 plus states in the Affordable Care Act, the growth in food stamps and school meals have been extraordinary over that 30 years in propping up the bottom third of the population against the lack of health coverage and the growth in poverty and the increased hunger that would have happened if left to what was happening in the employment market alone. So you can see that as the glass half empty or the glass half full. But it is a triumph of low-income advocacy in the context where too often we say nothing's happening, everything's gridlocked, Congress is dysfunctional, our state is worse than the other 49 states, and everybody in every state says that. I think we need to recognize what's been accomplished. Just one more point, the food stamp number, the participation rate went from 50 to 83%. When FRAC started a school breakfast campaign now 25 years ago, only half of the schools in the country had breakfast programs. Now it's above 90%. Only about a third of kids who were getting school lunch, low-income kids, were eating breakfast. Now it's about 53%. These numbers, these programs have transformed children's lives, millions of children's lives, in important ways that we don't take enough time to congratulate ourselves for. Thank you.
I think we've got time for a couple audience questions. Richard, do we have any zingers? Somebody else, all right. This is a technical question for you, Eddie. Let's see if.
Oh, perfect. Just what I wanted.
See if you can answer. Phrased simply enough, what are the reasons that summer meals cannot be taken off-site?
So I cannot quote the policy verbatim at this point, but I can tell you that the statute is basically that it's the law. You can't break the law. So that's really what the reason is.
So let me just
Audrey would like to add.
Yeah. So the legislation was passed in 1968 to create the summer feeding program, and it was connected to the assumption that schools should be open. And so summer feeding would take place the same way the school lunch program was addressed. And so they specifically in the law said that summer feeding program must be in a congregate site location, which meant a school, which is what they were saying. They carved out a couple of exceptions, but they are so narrowly defined. They relate more to residential camps and not or camping, residential camps than any place else. So we really are operating within a 1968 law that nobody had good sense to change in all of this time. So now we are trying to change it through the Child Nutrition Reauthorization. If we did not have to do it by law, we would be doing a lot of more. We still have congregate support. Schools being engaged in these programs, having activities the way, I'm sorry, the way Jim described it is really very important. You want kids to have learning, physical activity, good food. You want a rounded program, not just feeding them and sending them home. So schools are an important part of any summer feeding program, but the congregate is specifically by statute.
More reason to advocate for a strong child nutrition.
That's exactly what I would have said.
Yeah. Just another solution that we actually haven't talked about that's sort of a little bit different than going through the summer meals program, and that is the president's proposal to expand summer electronic benefits transfer for children. This would be so great for Texas for all the reasons we said. It would basically provide a little bit of extra money on the kind of Lone Star cards through your Weaver Snap for families to be able to buy those meals and supplement during the summer. So I just wanted to say that is another solution. We should be pushing both for sure for all of these solutions, but I want to mention that.
And that is something that is currently in the bills under discussion.
It's in both the House and Senate bills. Can I add a caveat to that? So we strongly support summer EBT, but I think we all need to think twice sometimes about solutions that only are for children. Because not only is it an outrage that we have these tens of millions of adults who are struggling with hunger, but also if kids get enough to eat and parents don't, or grandparents, whoever's raising them, there's a lot of evidence of the harm that does to the children. So we need to raise food stamp benefits year-round for people. For families as a whole, and just as an aside on EBT, the wonderful USDT EBT pilots, demonstration projects that were done a couple of summers ago, summer EBT, showed if you gave kids $30 a month for 3 months, their food insecurity rates went way down. If you gave them $60 a month for 3 months, the whole family's food insecurity rates went down. Congress in the child nutrition bills has the number pegged at $30, not $60. Families need $60 or more during the summer through EBT, just like they need the food stamp allotment to go up to the low-cost food plan year-round.
All right, well, I think we're out of time, but please join me in thanking our stellar panel here.